What would you say if we told you that there was a film that completely altered the landscape of the film industry? It is true that we are going to discuss one of the most significant films of the 20th century in the video that we are going to see today. As a result of this film, the film business and the individuals who lived during that era were able to develop into what we know today. This film marked the beginning of what is going to be the best age of cinema. The most shocking aspect is the quality of acting that Rita Hayworth achieved, which reached the pinnacle of brilliance and established the acting that is still followed to this day. Make sure you are prepared to learn about the most cherished sequence in the history of cinema, which left everyone speechless, and to discover how it altered the entire globe. As a result of the fact that Rita worked in a number of different fictions, which are all recognized as diamonds in the classic television, the green viewers might start to wonder which of the movies we are talking about. Other films that fall into this category include Only Angels Have Wings and The Lady from Shanghai. Nevertheless, those who are more experienced in the film industry will be aware that these are not the films that established Rita as a renowned actress. The film that we are referring to was directed by Charles Vider in 1946, and this individual was widely regarded as the most accomplished director who ever wandered the skies of this planet. Even when measured by the standards he had established for himself, the work that he exhibited in the film Gilda, which was released in 1946, was something that was truly remarkable. He was known to be acclaimed for his superb cinematography. In light of the fact that the inspiration and the lessons he left behind in the film were somewhat peculiar at the time, it came as a complete surprise. You should make sure to watch the video all the way through to the finish if you are interested in learning about his sources of inspiration and the kind of message he left behind in the film. The question is, what was it about this film that made it so revered by the industry that it was considered a holy treasure by everyone? This film was set in Argentina after World War II, and as you are aware, it had not been very long since the end of World War II in real life. As a result, the movie's background spoke to and related to the audience. There are many reasons for this, and we will go over them throughout the video. However, the most important reason has got to be the fact that this film was set in Argentina. The audience was able to get the impression that the storyline of this movie was so realistic that they could even put themselves in the shoes of the performers. This was a fascinating aspect of the movie. Aside from that, the characters in this film are representative of the tremendous feelings of power, jealousy, and revenge that the people were experiencing at the time after the war. These feelings were immediately translated into the characters in this film. Because of this, the audience was able to use this film as a channel through which they could express their unrestrained feelings. It is not the case that we are merely promoting this work of fiction on our own. Due to the fact that this film was so remarkable and well respected, it was chosen for preservation in the National Film Registry of the United States in the year 2003. It should go without saying that this is among the most prestigious awards that a movie can receive. Aside from everything else, there is one thing that people still do not understand even in this day and age. Who was the true hero of this tale we are sharing? You will know the solution to this issue by the time you reach the conclusion of this video. This is a question that has concerned a great number of individuals. There is no need to be concerned because the entire plot is not based on a reality that exists after Reality War II. This is not even the primary storyline. Because of the main plot, a setting was created that was so intense that the tension that existed between the characters could be sliced with a knife. The primary focus of this narrative was on a complicated love triangle that included a husband, a wife, and a significant other who had a lover. Let's just say that he was addicted to taking chances. Glenn Ford, who played Johnny Farrell, was a skillful gambler who made his income through street games in Buenos Aires. The story opens with Johnny Farrell, who was played by Glenn Ford. When he meets Balin Munson, a ruthless and violent casino mogul who also operated an illegal international tungsten cartel, according to George McCready, his life undergoes a dramatic transformation. Balin Munson was portrayed by McCready. Due to the fact that Balin noticed Johnny's cleverness, he attempted to hire him as his right-hand man, which resulted in the two of them being close companions. It is not a contemporary Netflix series, so there is no need to be concerned about these two getting together. However, the plot begins to become more tense when Johnny is introduced to Gilda, who is Balin's wife. The character of Gilda was portrayed by Rita Hayworth, and the minute when Johnny and her eyes meet, there is a spark between them. This was not your typical affair with spark, it was something else entirely. This leaves the viewer guessing about what really is going on, and then we get the big surprise that Gilda was Johnny's former lover. The arrival of Gilda creates the conditions for a love triangle that is explosive and causes everything to explode like a fireworks display. In the beginning, everything looked to be going well, and it appeared as though both Johnny and Gilda were going to be careful about their limits because Gilda was now married. However, there was a problem. Neither Balin nor Gilda has feelings for the other. Balin saw her to be a stunning trophy that exemplified his power or authority. Gilda, on the other hand, viewed Balin as an oppressor and a manipulator who had confined her to a cage during her interactions with him. In addition, it was not any better with Johnny since, during the time that they were together, Johnny was constantly concerned that Gilda was having an affair with another man. Both of them were driven nuts by the toxic manipulation and lack of loyalty that they experienced, and they had no other option but to part ways with one another for good. Now that the three of them had finally come face to face with one another, nobody knew what was going to take place. When Gilda and Johnny look at each other and simultaneously realize that Balin is not an idiot, the situation becomes even more intriguing. After coming to the realization that the two of them were involved in something, he made a statement that caused the audience members to feel an overwhelming sense of dread. Hatred is an exciting feeling, and the narrative proceeded despite this. To let you know, Johnny was already aware of the consequences that would befall him in the event that he ever had the audacity to steal something that belonged to Balin. As a result, his choices were going to actually determine whether or not he lived or died. Therefore, when Balin had to go away for a business trip and left the two of them alone, Johnny made the proper option because he was a wise man and he made the right choice. After Gilda saw them meet, she realized that the intensity of her feelings for Johnny was too much for her to bear, so she confessed to him and informed him about her feelings for him. She also told Johnny how much she loved him. In light of the fact that Johnny was aware of what Balin was capable of doing in the event that he ever discovered that he was having an affair with his wife, he made the appropriate choice. He kissed Gilda with such fervor that it shocked everyone in the crowd and caused their jaws to drop. Our young man was under the impression that all he needed to do was make sure that Balin never found out, and he would be okay. As a result, this event marked the beginning of the most significant affair in the history of cinema, and the results of this event stunned everyone. As the film progressed, there were three events that were taking place. Johnny's remorse was a constant presence in his life, and he was becoming overly loyal to Balin. Even though Gilda was trying to keep her feelings in check, Balin was becoming increasingly suspicious of the two of them. Gilda's feelings were about to explode in a short amount of time. These feelings that Gilda was experiencing were going to be the driving force behind the most memorable cinematic sequence that Rita had ever created, which was going to take everyone by surprise. It is generally agreed that this particular scene, in which Gilda explodes up and lets everything out, is the pinnacle of the climax that occurs in the film. The fact of the matter is that Gilda was a character that possessed a great deal of strength and charisma, but ever since she became married to Balin, she had been repressing herself quite so much. As these feelings continued to accumulate, the event finally took place. Rita's most impressive performances to yet. When Rita arrived at a dinner party, she was wearing a strapless black dress, and she looked simply lovely. While she was performing a song called Blame It All on Mame, which was both sensual and provocative, she looked so dazzling that it could cause your heart to burst out of your chest. A trend that emerged in later films was the classic hair flip, which became popular in those flicks. It is undeniable that Rita Hayworth's performance was a masterclass in commanding presence. This is due to the fact that the manner in which she twirled her hair, utilized her stare, and misapplied that seductive smile was more effective in capturing the audience's attention than her physical actions. The manner in which she removes her glove was important because it provided an indication about the layers that comprise her persona. It was believed that HC was powerful and self-sufficient, yet she was also vulnerable. Considering that, to tell you the truth, we were not anticipating a striptease at the time. This sequence was highly sexy. The question is, how did the board allow this video to be broadcast? The solution will be revealed at a later point in the video. This moment is particularly memorable due to the fact that it is approached from two different perspectives. On one side, it is designed to symbolize the seduction and attractiveness of Hollywood's golden age, but on the other hand, it is also a turning point that displays Gilda's power within the film's plot. Both of these purposes are intended to be accomplished. In a world where men are the dominant force, Gilda uses her body not only as a weapon but also as a shield and a tool for self-expression at the same time. She does this to demonstrate that she is able to influence how she is regarded, even while she is being objectified, by manipulating the attention of others around her. The significance of this scenario in terms of its influence on culture is something that we would like to emphasize. It elevated Rita Hayworth to the stature of a Hollywood star and brought Gilda to the attention of the general public. It was her strip charm that resulted in her being a darling with American soldiers who had returned home from World War II. As a result of her immense popularity, Hayworth's portrait was affixed to the walls of the barracks, and she was revered and adored in that location as if she were a goddess. Aside from that, this song was also significant because the lyrics suggested that whenever there is a problem, just blame it all on a girl named Mame. The song also portrays Mame as herself, where everything that has gone wrong has been blamed on Gilda since the beginning of time. This was the moment when Gilda attempted to wage battle against her possessive husband, who believed that he possessed her, as well as her boyfriend, who considered Gilda to be a shackle. Absolutely mind-blowing was the manner in which the movie reached its climax after this sequence. However, there is another reason why this movie is held in such high esteem, and that is because it defied the prejudices that were prevalent at the time. In Hollywood at the time, the conclusion of a movie often depicted the generic villain being killed off and the hero and heroine living happily ever after. However, this particular film represented a departure from the norm. In what way, you might ask? You could find out by seeing this movie, wouldn't you say? During a period in history when the majority of people were incredibly conservative, you might be wondering how a movie that had a scene like To His was able to survive. Uncomplicated is the response. It was an exceedingly challenging task. Off-screen turmoil was a part of the production of the movie to a certain extent. The fact that Rita had recently given birth was the first issue that needed to be addressed, as she needed to find a way to improve her body. During this time period, corsets were first introduced, and they began to work like magic. This was essentially a cheat code because it improved her appearance whenever she appeared in important sequences. In addition to her pregnancy, she had a number of additional challenges, such as the fact that her rising celebrity resulted in contractual disagreements with Columbia Pictures, which finally led to Hayworth securing a portion of the earnings from films that her company would produce in the future. Do you have any idea why we bring up something that is so common? This is due to the fact that this particular point in time in history was the time when we witnessed the actors' influence growing inside the profession and they were finally able to make demands. When it comes to Rita, the problem is not going away just yet. Additionally, there were a few other issues to consider. It is common knowledge that Gilda would be considered a feminist film because the primary role was played by a female character rather than a male one. It was so insane at the time that the poster for the movie became a symbol, and it even made an appearance in the movie The Shawshank Redemption, which was released in 1994. That being said, Gilda's character was so powerful that the actors of the time, who were known for their conservatism and sexism, declined to participate in the production of this picture after seeing the script. Humphrey Bogart was one of the actors who was considered for the character of Johnny. However, he ultimately denied the job, citing the fact that Hayworth's presence would overshadow any other co-star. Just like that, this demonstrated how much fear the general public had of Gilda and Rita Hayworth. Whatever the case may be, the final result was a hit, and the movie ultimately altered the way in which society functioned. How is it? To discover out, you will need to wait until the very end of the film. In the movie, neither Gilda nor Johnny were the primary protagonists or heroes. A number of remarkable individuals were responsible for the making of this picture, including Charles Vidor, whose direction was a significant contributor to the popularity of the film. The German Expressionist movement had a significant impact on him, and as a result, he utilized dramatic lighting and shadow play in order to stimulate a sense of tension and atmosphere. Through his work with the cinematographer Rudolf Matt, he was able to create visually spectacular scenes that accurately convey the character's emotional state. The utilization of creative camera angles and movements in conjunction with the scenes depicted all of the emotions that the actors were experiencing, whether they were angry, sad, glad, or in the mood for something terrible. The Art Deco-inspired sets that Stephen Goodson designed and that offered a beautiful and evocative atmosphere were essential to the success of this endeavor. Without them, it would not have been conceivable. You would be mistaken if you believed that this was all that was required to create a movie that was so successful that it altered people's perspectives. Without the music, the entire movie would have been devoid of any sense of depth. Hugo Friedhofer was the one who composed the score for the movie, and let us just say that the songs he created were created with the intention of being used in particular situations, such as the mysterious one. On the other hand, the haunting ballad Amato Mio, which is sung by Anita Ellis, shows the profound yearning and passion that exists between Gilda and Johnny. Put the Blame on Mame is a representation of Gilda's alluring attractiveness. Friedhofer's music was influenced by a variety of musical styles, including jazz, Latin rhythms, and classical instruments. The success of the movie is ultimately due to the fact that all of them come together in some way and contribute to its success. Lastly, there is one thing that people have a tendency to ignore, and that is the cast that they choose. If the characters in the film had been portrayed by anyone other than these particular performers, it would have been beyond the scope of possibility to bring out this particular interpretation of the characters. When you consider how George McCready's portrayal of Balin Munson makes up for the heavy and arrogant character who loves to keep everything under control, you can understand why this is the case. Rita Hayworth's performances absolutely capture the character's fragility and power, while George McCready's portrayal of Balin Munson completely captures the character's strength. The portrayal of Glenn Ford as Johnny, who is both tormented and beautiful, strikes a balance between charm and a darker edge. Back in the day, people were so obsessed with Johnny that they used to think of him as if he were a Disney character from the present day. For those who are interested in understanding how they feel, all you need to do is picture Johnny as Flynn Rider from Tangled, with a somewhat more sinister disposition. In a nutshell, we must not overlook the efforts and the careful sorting that were carried out by the casting directors in order to find the most qualified actors to portray the role of Johnny.